The story really starts back hundreds of years before today. Oysters were the predominant shellfish species all throughout the Long Island bays, New York Harbor, all of these places. But then over time, with increased human settlement and overfishing and changes to the local water quality, we've seen drastic declines, not just out here on the East End, but really all throughout New York State. Oysters are filter feeders, so they take algae that's floating in the water column, they feed on it, and they turn that into biomass and they grow. What you often see in places where oysters have been overfished extensively is this decrease in the collective ability to filter out that algae. Part of the work we're doing now is to try and bring these oysters back at least a fraction of their historical abundance. So to create these oyster reefs, we start with loose shell. That shell then gets stuffed into these mesh bags that we put in these large vats that are filled with water. We then spawn these oysters, and we take the larvae from those spawns and we put them in that same water. So then you get these thousands of oysters that have settled on this shell material, and they're really, really small. In this stage we call them spat. And they begin to grow, and we let them grow for a little bit in there before we then take them out to the boats, out to the spot in the water, and create a three-dimensional structure, which then becomes the oyster reef. We're not looking to just restore one species. The idea is that by changing the community composition, we can have sort of these domino effects that help improve the entire water quality of the region and could basically increase the biodiversity, move our bays from this sort of degraded state back to a previous state in which we had more oysters, more clams, more shellfish, more fish, more habitat, all of these things that add value to coastal ecosystems. We've been doing this work for 4 or 5 years now, and it wasn't until 2020, this last year, that we actually found oysters begin to colonize various places. And once we have that, from there it's really all about just putting out more material, more shell material, so that they have places to settle. And then, once they settle in places, colonize new places, they can reproduce and do the same thing. So it's sort of this idea that hopefully in the next 20 years or so, the number of oysters in our bay will have grown exponentially.